So there's no shortage of excitement around Norman, Oklahoma right now. The Oklahoma Sooners are hosting their spring game this weekend, at which several top high school prospects will be in attendance. Not only that, but the spring transfer portal window opened up this week, meaning Brent Venables and the Oklahoma coaching staffs get to peer into the portal and see what big wins they can get. Luckily for Oklahoma fans today, we're talking about two big names you need to know, not only because they would be massive wins, but also because they're set to be in attendance for Oklahoma's spring game. Of course, today we're talking about two defensive linemen. First, Dominic Williams from TCU, and secondly, Germaine LOL from Louisville. Before we can jump into this, y'all know the drill. I have got to hear from you. Hop down to the comments. Give me a Y for yes, N for no. Do you believe the Oklahoma Sooners come away with some big transfer portal wins? Can't wait to hear from you. If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe, hit that bell notification. I do constant college football content. You don't want to miss any of it. And if you enjoyed the content, be sure to like and comment down below. But having said all that, let's jump right into this. And first and foremost, we're going to talk about TCU defensive lineman Dominic Williams and why both of these names would be massive additions. First and foremost, I know OU fans are excited about the young talent you have along the defensive front. You got some major names in the last recruiting cycle, and naturally they're turning heads. But the one thing you don't have as much of as you would like is the experience. You have Terry coming back, but outside of that, you would like some more names to add into the fold. Insert these transfer portal guys coming to visit and coming to check out the Oklahoma spring game. That's exactly why you would love to get these guys in, because they can help create competitive depth and rotation along that defensive front, something that we know to be a massive asset, especially in a league like the SEC, and especially with the defensive line coach like Todd Bates. Dominic Williams is a name that Oklahoma fans will be familiar with. He dominated in the Big 12. This past season, he had 33 total tackles, 14 solo, and 3 sacks. And one thing you love is if you can generate pressure on a quarterback from the interior, it just makes everybody's job easier. Oklahoma is going to have a secondary that personally I'm really excited to see, but that secondary is going to have their jobs made a lot easier if your front seven can generate a pass rush, whether that comes from the edges or from the interior. But one thing we do know, it even makes the edges jobs easier if you can get guys to generate quarterback pressures from the interior, something Dominic Williams was able to do. He stands 6'2", 320 pounds, and he's got an interesting intersection that we talk about that you're looking for in the transfer portal. He has experience, but he also has eligibility, as he's only a sophomore. So theoretically, you could have him for 1 or 2 more years, depending on what type of season he has. If he's got a breakout season, he might test the NFL, but if he's someone who would rather have 2 seasons more under his belt to create more film, you could have him for a while longer. And that's something that I know would excite all OU fans because it helps your young guys start developing more naturally and easier. And there are some young guys Oklahoma fans need to be very excited about, such as a Jackson, such as a David Stone. But Dominic Williams is not the only big name along the defensive front OU fans are excited about that are visiting this weekend. You also have Germaine LOL, the senior from Louisville, who's coming off of a season where he had 14 total tackles, 6 solo, and 1.5 sacks with a forced fumble. And one thing we need to understand about Germaine LOL is that his most productive year was in 2019, where he went off accounting for 6 sacks. Much of the same argument can be made about LOL that we made about Dominic Williams, right? Where you want a guy with experience. You want a guy that's seen a lot in college football, and LOL has, as he's a senior, but he also has been proven to generate a pass rush from the interior. Now, like I said, the biggest year he had was 2019, but if you can replicate even a fraction of that with some of the talent you have along the defensive front, I know that that would be able to be a massive addition for this defensive front for Oklahoma. Like we said earlier on in this video, Oklahoma is not necessarily lacking the talent up front. They've got some guys that they're excited about, but they just don't have the experience that one would like. But that's why the transfer portal is always so unique. And one thing we have to talk about and acknowledge is that Brent Venables in Oklahoma have been fantastic in the transfer portal, as they have been fantastic in recruiting. Ever since Brent Venables took over, Oklahoma has maintained a top 10 recruiting class, and Oklahoma has been one of the few teams that can claim they have a top 10 recruiting class and a top 10 class in transfer portal acquisitions. That's something that's pretty rare. Only a few teams have been able to do it, and OU under Brent Venables has consistently been able to show, hey, we can be one of those teams. Now, I don't doubt that these are only very early names that Oklahoma will be looking at via the transfer portal, nor do I think that they are the only names Oklahoma will be looking at. I have no doubt that they will look at any other position group that they can add in competitive depth, but one of the areas that I know Oklahoma fans are watching the closest is this defensive front, because you've got some really talented and exciting young guys, and you're just trying to add in more weapons along this front. One thing we need to acknowledge and remember, this is only the first week of the transfer portal, and there are spring games still set to take place. So I'm not surprised that it's been a little bit slower than many people anticipated. If I had to guess, next week is where we'll see some action via the transfer portal. We'll see even more big names enter, because after those spring games, people have a clearer understanding of where they sit on the depth chart. And a lot of these teams are going to utilize spring games to try and get guys to stay on their own rosters. So a lot of moving pieces, a lot of interesting things happening around college football, and you already know we'll be here to break it all down and to keep up with it all. Can't wait to hear from all of you. Hop down to the comments and let me know, do you think you get Dominic Williams? Do you think you get Germaine LOL? Or do you think you can pull off both wins? Can't wait to hear from you. That's it. See ya.